thank you so much for joining me in this video. Welcome back, and if you're new here, welcome. My name is Quinn, and thank you so much for clicking on this video. So in this video, I am going to be trying to make black-eyed peas with pork. Now this is a recipe that was introduced to me by Jordan's uncle. A couple years ago, we went to California to visit Jordan's mom for New Year's, or like around New Year's time. And when we were there, we were lucky that Jordan's uncle came and visited at the same time, and he brought some black-eyed peas with him. And he told us it was a tradition to have black-eyed peas every New Year's. Honestly, as fun as tradition is, we just loved how it tasted. It was so phenomenal. So I am very excited to try that in this video. Before I go on, I just want to talk about how much fun I am having with these videos. I have always had a passion for food, and I don't know why I didn't think about it in the past, but kind of combining my love for cooking with my love for trying new foods into a video or a video series was just honestly so fun. I have only been doing this for like a week and a half or 2 weeks, but I feel like my horizons have like expanded. My cooking skills have gotten better because I'm learning new techniques that I would have never learned had I not ventured out and tried these unique recipes that I was, quite frankly, intimidated to try in the past. The black-eyed peas recipe that Uncle Greg uses actually is a recipe from the Neelys on the Food Network. He, of course, tweaked it a little bit, so he told me the tweaks that he made. For the most part, I followed this recipe as best I could with Uncle Greg's tweaks. I hope that it turned out just as great as when we had it a couple years ago. Anyway, here is how I made this recipe.
So to make this recipe, I started by prepping and soaking dried black-eyed peas the night before. You can also use frozen or canned beans, but I've never tried cooking with dried beans and heard a lot of people prefer them over the other options, so I wanted to give them a try. The next morning, I rinsed the beans and picked out any skins or impurities that were floating in the water. Then I drained the beans and set them aside until they were ready to go into the pot. Next, I cleaned the pork shoulder and trimmed as much fat off the meat as possible. Then I cut it into roughly 2-inch cubes. I actually only used about 1.5 pounds for this recipe and saved the other half for a future meal, which ended up being the perfect amount of meat for us. But you can use more or less depending on your preference and how meaty you want your peas. I also sliced the bacon into 1/2-inch pieces. Now that all the meat is prepared, I heated up a large pot over medium heat and added my bacon once the pot was hot. Then cooked it until most of the fat is rendered and the bacon is crispy. While the bacon cooked, I seasoned the pork chunks with some garlic powder, black pepper, salt, and mixed to combine. This wasn't called for in the recipe, but I have a hard time not seasoning my meat before I cook it. Once the bacon is crispy, I removed it from the pot and tossed in the seasoned pork pieces and allowed them to brown. Then I added my chopped onions, garlic powder, black pepper, cayenne powder, and salt. Gave it a quick mix before adding in the minced garlic and cooked bacon. Feel free to reserve a little bit of the bacon to add on top at the end. Next, I added in 3 bay leaves followed by the chicken stock and stirred well to get all of the caramelized bits from the bottom of the pot, which contains a lot of the flavor. I also added 2 cups of water, let everything come to a boil, then covered, lowered the heat, and let simmer for 30 minutes to soften the meat. After the 30 minutes, I went ahead and added the pre-soaked black-eyed peas, then again, bring it to a boil, cover, then reduce the heat and let simmer for an hour and a half, stirring every once in a while to make sure nothing burns on the bottom. This isn't in the original recipe, but I decided to add in 4 whole peppers in vinegar to add a little bit of heat and acidity. Towards the end of the hour and a half, I tasted the peas and added salt and pepper to taste. And that's pretty much it for this recipe. Now it's time to plate and serve.
Alright, so I have my black-eyed peas in front of me. It looks so good. I paired it with some collard greens and then of course some cornbread, because I feel like that's kind of just like traditional southern comfort food right there. And these 3 items go together so well. Just from first look, I will say I think I overcooked the black-eyed peas. I added the amount of water that it called for and broth, and then also cooked it for the time that the recipe calls for as well. And I think maybe I had the heat on a little bit too high because it got really, really thick. I don't remember Jordan's uncle's black-eyed peas being this creamy, but nonetheless, I'm sure it's gonna taste great. I think maybe in the future I will add a little bit more water or like turn down the heat so that the black-eyed peas kind of keep more of its structure instead of kind of just getting really creamy and mush, because mine is definitely on the mushier side, but I think the flavor is still going to be there, and it's just going to be something that I will think about in the future when I make this again. I am so excited. I also have some peppers in vinegar because the recipe calls for it. So I hope this is like the right brand or the right thing, but this is all I was able to find at the grocery store. This looks and smells phenomenal. I'm gonna get a little bit of the pork in there as well. And let's give this a try. That is so delicious. It's so rich and creamy. The flavor is all there. I feel like there's a party in my mouth right now. There is a little bit of heat from the cayenne in there. The saltiness is just like really well balanced from the creaminess of the beans. The pork is just fall apart tender. It's so, so, so delicious. I'm gonna try it with the collard greens because I feel like, you know, that's just what goes with this meal. It's even better with collard greens. I will share the recipe that I followed for these greens. So if you decide to make this, you can make them together because they're really good. I added a little bit of vinegar to the collard greens, and I think that balances out the beans really well. And I think this is going to do that as well. So I'm gonna add a couple of drops of this. I actually tried a little bit of this when I was cooking, and it is spicy. So I'm going to just do a couple of drops and go from there. Okay, here it goes. It's not bad with the peas. This is the first time I've ever made beans from dried beans. I love the idea of having dried beans or peas or like legumes in the pantry and then soaking them the night before and getting them ready. I feel like you get so much more when you buy them dry as opposed to canned. Now I love cooking with canned beans. To me, it's just super quick and easy, and we love the taste of them. It's a good source of protein. But I also feel like the texture of soaked dried beans is a little bit better than canned beans. I feel like canned beans are very mushy a lot of times. So this texture to me is like very impressive. And having tried it, it was not as intimidating as I thought it was gonna be. And that was one of the reasons why I never used dried beans in the past, was because I was quite frankly a little bit intimidated by it. It seemed like it was a bit of a process. But having tried it, it actually wasn't bad. All I did was soak it the night before. It was very little effort, and then it was ready for me when I woke up the next morning. So I will definitely be experimenting with more dried beans recipes. And yeah, I'm just really impressed with the texture, the flavor. Honestly, this recipe has been so phenomenal. Like, I was blown away. Not only were the peas really good, but like the combination of this whole meal has been just super comforting. Like, this is gonna be a recipe that I'm gonna be making a lot of when it's cold outside in the winter. And I can see why this would be like a popular dish for New Year's. And if you've never tried black-eyed peas with pork, I highly recommend this recipe. And if you don't eat pork, I'm sure you can also use turkey or chicken, and it would turn out just as good. Anyways, guys, that is pretty much it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. Do you have a black-eyed peas recipe that you love? If you do, please let me know, and leave the recipe down below if you don't mind sharing. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and if you haven't done so already, be sure to click on that subscribe button right there and hit that bell notification so you can see more videos like this. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!